Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The panel will begin in a couple of minutes, so please begin making your way to your seats so that we can start on time. As usual, we will be receiving questions by email here in the back of the room, so text or email your questions to askmeindopac@gmail.com.
May I have your attention, please? Please take your seats so that the panel can begin. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Colonel Mike Black, U.S. Air Force retired, Vice President of Defense, AFCEA International.
Aloha.
Aloha.
All right, that was good. That's good. Good morning. I want to thank you for joining us for this morning's panel, Modernizing Communication, IT, and Cyber in the Indo-Pacific. Note that the attendance at this session is approved by JIAC for continuing education. So if you're an AFCEA member and would like to receive documentation of your attendance at this session, please make sure you scan your badge at the scanners located at the entrance of the room at the conclusion of the panel. If you are not a member, scan your badge and then stop by the AFCEA booth to join. Okay? Today's parking validation is sponsored by Tricentis. If you parked here at the Convention Center, stop by booth 1237. Again, that's booth 1237 to get your parking ticket stamped. Today's luncheon will be on the exhibit floor rather than upstairs like yesterday. Food stations will be placed throughout the hall, so grab a plate and continue to network with our exhibitors. This morning's panel will explore how cyber leaders prioritize modernization under tight budgets, coordinate service priorities, and joint opportunities across services in the Pacific as they navigate the trade-offs of shaping the future. Now, moderating today's panel is Brigadier General Paul Fredenberg, United States Army retired, Executive Vice President for AFCEA International. Now, before I get into a short bio on Paul, I want you to know that Paul's mother is on this island, and her name is Inga. She is 102 years old. And so we're going to, yes, we're going to say, on my count of three, we're going to say, Aloha Inga, okay? Now, you all know I have a current situation, so I need somebody to videotape that and get that to me.
And give it to
okay?
me
There's
too,
a lot of
huh?
people out here. I need somebody to videotape us doing that and get that to me, okay? On three. All right, 1, 2, 3. Aloha Inga. One more time, just like that. 1, 2, 3. Aloha Inga. All right.
Wow.
All right. So General Fredenberg's 33-year Army career featured extensive time here in the Indo-Pacific AOR, including an assignment as the Director of Command, Control, Communications, and Cyber for U.S. Indo-Pacific Command. His last assignment before retiring and joining AFCEA was the Deputy Commander of Joint Force Headquarters Doden, where he directed an organization focused on command and control of global network and defensive cyber operations that enabled cyber mission assurance for the Department of Defense, or Department of War as we call it today. So please join me in a warm welcome for my immediate boss, General Paul Fredenberg, and this morning's panel.
Thanks, Mike. All right. Am I on? Oh, here we go. There we go. All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to this morning's fireside chat. It's great to have you all here. We got a lot of important things to talk about. And I want to thank Mike. I got to get a copy of that video because I'm going to play that for my mother as soon as I see her. We're going to spend a little extra time enjoying the aloha here with the family after this event's over with. So thanks for that. Let me just do one thing, and I just want to tee this up with a little context from what we heard yesterday. We had several senior leaders on the stage, and I just want to summarize some of the things that they highlighted just to kind of set a little bit of the conditions here for the discussion. But they talked about advancing operational capabilities that outpace the threat. And when you're thinking about modernization, you got to think about that. They talked about winning together. And they talked about winning together with a public-private collaboration. They also talked about winning together as a joint, combined, all-domain warfighting force. And we have both of those groups with us in this room today. Several of them, and Admiral Kaler just emphasized it, talked about speed being the defining characteristic of decision-making and the need to maintain that decision dominance. They talked about the need for resilient networks in a contested environment, and those that can enable the networking of autonomous systems. And they also talked about the need to leverage emerging technology, emerging capabilities like artificial intelligence and many others to help improve and speed up the decision-making process. So with these goals and objectives in mind that were laid out by our senior leadership here in the INDOPACOM theater, we are very glad to have 4 of the key leaders who are working to enable the theater for the future warfight on the stage today. Each of the leaders and their respective organizations are absolutely critical to leveraging emerging technologies and capabilities. And these organizations are synchronizing across the joint and the combined warfighting environments to maximize effects. So I'm going to lay out a little bit of rules for the chat. And the rules are, there are no rules. And so I will introduce them briefly and give each one of them an opportunity to make a short statement, and we'll find out who likes to talk and who doesn't, just to either further a little bit about themselves or talk about a little bit about what they're doing here, just to tee up the conversation, not to get into anything deep. And then I have a few primer questions, but please, if you could look at the screens, submit your questions to askme@indopac@gmail.com, because we want to get to those, to your questions as soon as we can. All right, I'm going to start off down at the end, but Brigadier General Ray Ferris, he's the U.S. Army, he's the commanding general of the mighty 311th Theater Signal Command. So Ray, just some opening comments to kick us off.
Hey, thanks, Paul. And good morning to all of you. Thank you for being here. I'll just make a quick opening comments. I really want to hear your questions to help drive our conversation. But I want to particularly thank our industry partners who continue to show up year after year, conference after conference, lugging your equipment and displays around for sometimes unsure payout or payoff. It really is makes this meaningful to have you all here with us. And like Paul said, it does take a partnership. So I believe our outcome here, one of our outcomes should be better understanding of what we need, what you can offer. Not so much focus on trying to make an immediate sale, but more so in understanding each other, because there's so many different ways that if we see an opportunity to partner, there are a lot of different ways to do that. But it starts with having a good understanding of each other. So very briefly, as Paul mentioned, I command the 311th Signal Command Theater. We are the Army service provider for the Indo-Pacific Theater. We're the senior Army NetCom element in this theater. So we have a dual role in that we extend enterprise Army services to primarily the Army, but to some degree the Joint Force. And then we also have an expeditionary capability so that we can supplement the expeditionary services for our adjacent enabling commands above the level of Corps primarily. So that's who we are. I look forward to your questions, and thanks for being here.
Thanks, Ray, appreciate that. All right, I'm going to go next here to Toby Ladd, United States Marine Corps, Commander at INDOPACOM.
All right, sir, thanks. Thanks to AFCEA, thanks to our industry partners, thanks to friends that I see out in the audience. It's a good reunion to see all of you here today. And really to the industry partners, what an awesome opportunity for us to get together, share requirements, and build to that partnership. So at INDOPACOM, obviously, we're covering the architecture for 52% of the Earth, right? No small task. We do that across 6 field offices across the AOR, but more importantly, looking at the requirements for INDOPACOM, how we can better support forward posture in theater. So a couple items that we're focused on from a INDOPACOM standpoint. How are we providing a resilient, redundant transport layer for the services and the interagency across the theater? How are we posturing forward cloud edge nodes across the theater to meet those requirements at a point and place of need, right? Better integration with our mission partners, meaning our allies, right? How are we bringing Australia, Japan, Philippines into those enclaves so we can better support warfighting? And then lastly, how are we defending it? We're posturing to stand up a regional network operations security center at INDOPACOM in Arnosk as a part of a larger architecture so we can better defend, operate, and provision resources for the theater. Look forward to the discussion and questions as it comes.
Yeah, thanks, Toby. Appreciate that. And now we'll keep going down the line, but Colonel Brett Cochran, U.S. Air Force, Commander of the 613th Air Operations Center. Brett, it's great to have you here.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the intro, sir. As you said, commander of the 613th Air Operations Center, the AOC. And what we are is an extension of the commander of Pacific Air Force's, General Schneider's, Theater Joint Force Air Component Command authorities, as well as helping out with this Theater Area Air Defense Command authorities. These are 24/7 command control capabilities that we run throughout INDOPACOM. So about half of the earth, day in and day out. So and the perspective that I bring is the end user, the requirements person, and really what we're trying to look at in the modernization challenges that we have is to bring together systems and to modernize at a pace to be able to bring all these forces together. And it's not just Air Force, it's a joint force, allies and partners all together to be able to synchronize everything in time and space. And a couple of themes that'll come out, you'll hear things like interoperability with joint force, allies and partners, and then as we continue to modernize, really trying to break down the stovepipes too. So there are a lot of folks doing great things in modernization with industry, the joint force, even within the Air Force, but trying to bring all that stuff together to get unity of effort is really what we're trying to do so we can do it at the fastest pace possible. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you. All right, and we're going to clean up here with Colonel Jared Vanita, United States Marine Corps C4 Ops Division Chief at INDOPACOM J63.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Aloha. Good morning to everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to talk with you. Up at the INDOPACOM J6, my portfolio includes our operations floor, understanding the current status of our network, outages, ongoing maintenance activities. It includes understanding our defense critical infrastructure, both military and civilian, and how it plays into our mission and how we coordinate with many, many partners, both government and civilian and foreign partners to make sure that we have that critical infrastructure in place. It includes our plans and policy, and it also includes an exercise branch. So kind of a broad portfolio and a lot of overlap across the rest of the six. Within INDOPACOM, particularly in the J6, I think our focus right now, first and foremost, is coalition networking, so very similar to a lot of the other panelists. How do we talk with our allies and partners? How do we get that environment in place so we can constantly communicate? And then our data and transport. Where does our data reside out in this theater so we can leverage all our AI capability? And how do we have enough resilient transport to ensure that we are never at a point in time where we are disconnected or in a denied, degraded, intermittent, latent environment? So planning that now, making sure that we're ready to transition from crisis to conflict if and when that time comes. But lastly, I'll summarize. It is great talking with the industry partners. I mentioned yesterday on a panel that I was moderating. I think our secret sauce is our relationship with industry. Our adversaries don't have that, and even a lot of our allies can't quite figure out how to do it. How do we work with industry? How do we communicate requirements? How do we get what we're paying for? How do we keep it at a classified level? Being able to do that is not a small thing. There's always tension between contracting and industry, but at the end of the day, it works out for all of us, and it gives us a capability that is second to none across the INDOPACOM theater. So thanks for what you do, and our goal is to communicate clearly what we need for you to come back to us with regard to capabilities. So thanks again.
Thanks again. I just want everybody to note that we separated the two Marines with an Air Force. We didn't want them to gang up against us up here and take over, but appreciate that. So hey, let's just jump right in. So I'm going to go to the two key service providers, and Ray, you kind of teed that aspect of your mission up out here, which is critical. So we'll start off with Toby and then go to Ray. But from your vantage point, what are the infrastructure investments that are most critical to accelerate modernization in the Indo-Pacific?
Yeah, so I think one of General Stanton's priorities from a DISA perspective is making sure we're able to deliver the right capabilities, be it data, application, or resources at the right place and time. So I think there's two aspects to that. As Jared spoke to, it's transport, it's delivery. right? That's where we're focused. So it's not just the undersea cables, it's the defense of those undersea cables or transoceanic trunks, it's the diversity, and it's the resiliency. So all of those things rolled up for those capabilities to make sure that we have the right coverage across the land masses of the Pacific. The second to that is the cloud, taking advantage of the hyperscaling capabilities that are coming online. So across the hyperscalers, how can we deliver forward cloud nodes for the right data resources, being USER-PAC, PAC Fleet, PAC-F, MAR4-PAC, at the right place in the theater. So Joint Operational Edge is our solution for that, JO nodes. And on the coalition side, we're integrating Joint Operational Edge Coalition, CE, to provide for our mission partners. So those would be the 2 points there.
Right, from your perspective.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. So on the transport side, diversity is important. You know, we have a couple of initiatives going on right now, like many other people. PLEO is very popular right now in terms of user terminals. There are also other PLEO capabilities that we're looking at so that we can help prevent any one location in this theater from ever being isolated. So we're looking to add, you know, in any reasonable option, we want to add that to our kit. Not trying to get rid of anything that we had previously or currently, but we're always looking to add new options. 5G is another where we're looking at. It helps us rapidly set up coverage area. And I'm talking private 5G, so that we can control access to that and rapidly arrive at an area and be able to deliver service to, you know, our service colleagues and our allies and partners. So those are a couple areas where we're looking to expand. We're doing some of that on our own initiative. In other areas, we work with the acquisition community to try to update our program of record kits so that it's uniform across the force. So those are a couple of examples of what we're doing. And of course, all of these activities we coordinate in the background with our DISA partners, with INDOPACOM, the other services. So there's a lot of shared value in some of these initiatives. And so we look to both share the cost and the benefits of it. So those are a couple of examples of what we're doing.
All right, so for Jared and Brett, just a slight different twist on that, but what are one or two major modernization priorities from your seats, you know, in terms of capabilities and technologies that you're looking out for the INDOPACOM theater? And Brett, we'll start with you.
Yeah, actually, Toby mentioned it initially. So it's really the infrastructure. General Schneider articulates or frames this in people, pipes, and processes. So establishing the pipes, the infrastructure to be able to do what we need to do to connect everybody. And cloud is one way that's very important to us. And there are capabilities that are existing out there. And we weren't really aware not that long ago that DISA had this architecture built up around the theater that we could leverage. So once we found that out, we quickly partnered with them and have been working very closely with them to explore the JO environment that he talked about, as well as moving forward with the JO Coalition Exchange as well. So we see a lot of promise in that. So what's already out there, you know, the things that we could do to be able to move quicker, as well as you know, taking the current systems that we have that are already proliferated across the joint force and just making those better. I think avoiding the temptation of trying to bring in new things that will then you know, set us back, because there's a part of it too when we look to modernize. Sometimes we forget about, you know, we get very focused on what it can do. It's got a lot of great capability on the screen, but there's a training and sustainment tail that comes with that as well. So I think for me, I'm trying to stabilize a lot of things that we have in terms of the innovation front. So leverage what's out there, stabilize that a bit, let my team learn it, make those things better, and then and try not to introduce a lot of big changes going forward. And then also make sure the joint force and the allies and partners have access to these as well.
I think easily the most disruptive technology that we have coming our way is artificial intelligence. And it is simply impossible for a theater this size and commanders with the areas that they have to cover to be able to do it the old way, PowerPoint slides, getting briefs. That information is too stale. We need to leverage technology in order to speed up our decision cycle. That being said, there's very few people that are qualified to train large language models. It's not us, that's not our job. But what we need to be doing is setting the theater to support artificial intelligence. So if you look at AI, machine learning as kind of a sports car, we need to have big, flat, smooth roads with minimal stoplights on them so we can drive fast on it. That's our transport layer. We need fuel for that sports car. That's our data. Where is our data? That data needs to be standardized, tagged, and accessible. I don't want an electric charging station here, diesel here, unleaded here, and not understanding how to fill up my sports car. I want access to that data, and I want a fast road to drive on. So where's my data located? What is the transport layer that we have to make sure that we're always connected to it? Because this theater is going to swell in size during conflict as the joint force, and 80% of them reside in CONUS, descends on this theater. So that fact alone will make our bandwidth requirements go up significantly. Coupled with that, we're just at the beginning stages of really truly leveraging AI, and that's going to move a lot of data around this theater. So we need to have room to grow into that capability and make sure that we are not constrained by those pipes in times of conflict. But I see AI as the forcing function for unification, streamlining, and putting our money where it does the most good to set us for conflict. And of course, all that capability can't just be resident within the joint force. We have to share it seamlessly and quickly at speed and scale with our partners in the theater. So kind of a challenge for us, but that's the direction that we are clearly going.
All right, remember when I said there were no rules? Did you all heard that, right? Okay, so we're gonna do a lightning round. I'm calling in audible, okay? So, as we look at breakthrough or emerging technology, you all talked about some of your priorities. But just give me one each, okay? Just 1 2-word answer, however much it takes. But what is the current kind of breakthrough technology, emerging tech, that gets you excited the most about possibilities for enabling the mission out here? We'll start with Ray and work our way down.
Yes, when I think about our transport mission and service delivery mission, there's 2 aspects to that. There's the strategic or the garrison fixed site service, and then there's the expeditionary. Most of our technologies and modernization for the strategic side is coordinated at Army Cyber or NetCom. So we're mostly downstream of those decisions. But the one I'm most excited about in this theater is for my expeditionary mission, and that's the PLEO transport capability. Okay. It's been a long time since we had an actually distinctly separate and new transport path. And this one happens to be low latency, high bandwidth. And so it's very well suited for the bandwidth heavy applications like Maven and the common operating picture that all the commanders want today. And it also, just by very, very good fortune, is totally consistent with the Army's approach to bring your own device, right? So when I have teams out in the field using the PLEO, we're able to split that off, and we can turn that into Nipper and Sipper or some mission partner network. We could also split that off and provide commercial internet to our teammates who are using their own device, phone, tablet, whatever it is, and then through that they can access enterprise services like Army 365 through Hypori or Intune MAM. So it really expands our customer base, and it dramatically expands our throughput and lowers our latency. So three key benefits of the PLEO transport option.
No, I just, that was a great answer, and I wasn't going to stop you, but it was more than 2 words.
2 words? There were at least 2 in there. Thanks.
Toby.
So one word acronym, SD-WAN.
Okay.
How are we connecting the different cloud environments so that we can get to the fast road that Jared is talking about? We're drowning in data, right? I'm agnostic of the cloud provider, but how am I going to leverage it across? And that's a technology that's going to allow us to get there, to move seamlessly between them, and bring in other partners as we do it.
Mesh network.
Okay. You nailed it, okay.
All right, I won't be that succinct, but I'll say, once again, AI, and a sub-bullet of that is what the hyperscalers are doing as they expand that transport infrastructure to access to that data. Second thing, zero trust, allowing us to share with allies and partners easier, but it will force us to remake our networks and can make them more streamlined and simple.
All right, so we talked about some priorities. We talked about some exciting new capabilities that we'd like to integrate here. Let's turn a little bit to some challenges. We talked a little bit yesterday about some of the challenges. You know, the tyranny of distance, the scale, the scope of this theater. But Ray, could you tee up, at least start us off? What are the challenges in this Indo-Pacific theater present for deploying capabilities and modernizing our infrastructure here in this region?
Sure. Well, one of the obvious ones that we talk about frequently are the distances, tyranny of distance. That's an obvious one. And that you can spin off a lot of different directions from that. You know, the cost, the time zone differences. There's a lot of aspects to that. One challenge that I find is it's kind of inherent to what we're doing. Is there's a lot of opportunity for all of us to fixate on one initiative or another, and then we end up, it's like a 6-year-old soccer game, and we're just like a little mass moving around the soccer ball. Part of what makes us more effective is if we can coordinate and play positions and cover down all the lanes, right? So through coordination, we minimize duplication of effort, and instead we're more complementary. Now that's easier said than done, but it takes a lot of self-awareness, both from us on the government side, knowing what we need and exactly how to describe that to the industry. And then on the industry side, it's helpful if you can direct us to what is your core competency? What is your key deliverable? Because when we go around from one booth to another and everyone says they can do everything, it's a little confusing, right? So you have to specialize in something. Otherwise, you're trying to do everything, and we know how that goes. So I would say being able to deconflict and clarify swim lanes and making sure there's no gaps and we reduce the duplication of effort.
Strategic center of gravity for INDOPACOM hasn't changed. It's allies and partners. The challenge of delivering that data, right? Target quality tracks, sustainment, C2 at the right level to our partners is still a challenge. We have a solution or solutions to that. DISAs is the Joint Operational Edge Coalition, but how we're bringing those networks and that data together, and the challenge not only of implementing that, the challenge is how are we defending that? How are we going to do an integrated, partnered, zero trust cloud defense, right? The challenge is training, the challenge is visibility, the challenge is some technology, right? And so all of those we're sprinting towards. We're sprinting towards a zero trust environment. We're sprinting towards coalition cloud environments, right? And we also have to make sure it's very secure with that data and the resource that we're putting into it.
I concur with Joel Ferris's point too. That's been the thing that has been probably my biggest challenge in the seat. So the unity of effort aspect that I mentioned in the opening comments, there's there's so many folks trying to do the right thing, but how do we bring all the relevant actors together in the same room to be able to modernize together? That's really hard to do. That's where I've spent, I've been in this job since the spring. That is where I've dedicated all my time, is cold calling all the different folks to bring the different capabilities together, and that includes my components, component partners, INDOPACOM, the allies. I've got my counterparts in Australia and Japan that I talk to regularly, and trying to bring them onboard folks or onboard capabilities that we need that someone else has, all at the same time, so we can all be on similar systems. We don't need anything exquisite, and oftentimes we chase the very exquisite thing because it sounds good, but we need like good stuff now across the board. So I think trying to bring all those folks together is probably the biggest challenge that I have since I've been in the seat.
I also concur with General Ferris, because it's always a good idea to agree with the general. But if we had to look at our network today, this is not the network we would build right now if we started from scratch. It just isn't. Our networks grew up from base post camps and stations, or sometimes individual units, and we started kludging them together, regional or larger unit approaches, and then now we're kind of up to service networks. Now we're looking for the next step. But this patchwork quilt of networks that we have together, where we're bending the pipe to make things work as opposed to purposely engineering it to make it work, is a challenge for us. I've joked with a lot of you that within a 5-mile radius of Pearl Harbor, we have 8 major DoD networks. That's 8 funding lines, 8 sets of equipment, 8 talented groups of people that we have to try to find. That's a challenge for us. At INDOPACOM, when you're sitting at the Joint Command, you might not care about it as much when you're a lieutenant. You're told, hey, you need to be a good joint officer. Yeah, I'll deal with that later. When you're at INDOPACOM, that starts to matter to you. I go through a lot of mental gymnastics every day trying to figure out C2 on our network with all the various services and service cyber components that don't work for Admiral Paparo in this theater, but their activities have direct impact on his ability to fight in this theater. So that's a challenge. As we start with what we're looking for, which is artificial intelligence, speed of decision making across every warfighting function, that should drive how we start to re-architect our networks, which will have a painful but necessary conversation from that of how do we C2 this. Things are going to change. We're going towards unification. The question is, are we going to do it in a deliberate, methodical, well thought out manner that's properly resourced, not cheap, but properly resourced? Or are we going to be drugged through the knothole in conflict when we have to do this in a much more compressed timeline? So everything Colonel Cochran is saying, it doesn't have to be that way for him. It could be much simpler. There's no reason preventing us from a technical perspective. We have to get over that cultural problem. It embarrasses me that I have aviators that have to go through and try to figure this out. That's not his responsibility, that's ours. So we need to tighten that up and clean it up for the force that we support.
So I'm going to go back to Toby for a second, but you mentioned it as a challenge, the interoperability with allies and partners. You talked about it in a couple of your comments, but how are we working, to enable interoperability and trust in our systems with our allies and partners across the Indo-Pacific region?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of great efforts that are going on right now to enable partnership sharing across our allies and partners in the Pacific. Each of the exercises that INDOPACOM has, or the service components has, it's a less an exercise, it's a rehearsal, and bringing in our allies and partners. And you'll see they're getting away from a bilateral sense, a more trilateral, multilateral. How are we bringing more of our partners in? We have the legacy networks that are still out there that were built for a bilateral standpoint. We have the INDOPACOM mission network, which is a zero trust environment. And then that's where we're going. So the partnerships, at least from a DISA perspective, are moving towards how are we getting our allies and partners prepared for a zero trust environment? how are they posturing their architectures to come into a zero trust environment, to be able to operate as a low, medium, high trust user. So depending on country X, Y, and Z, how they're going to come in to the architecture, the data they're going to get, zero trust enables us to do that, to provide that right level of COP, data, function to that specific ally and partner on a zero trust environment. That's the exciting part that we have now. 2 weeks ago in Australia, having those same discussions with those partners. But that's where we're going, and that's how they're preparing and investing as we move forward.
Yeah, please.
Tagging on what Toby said, as we're looking at the change that we need to make, think about how much more simple it would be with our allies and partners if we were operating on a joint, data-centric, zero-trust environment within the U.S. military and possibly within the interagency. Our problems get a lot more manageable when it comes to dealing with our allies and partners who might not have the budget that we have to modernize as quickly. So a lot of what DISA is doing right now is building that architecture to allow more of a pickup game of partners to come in as we build these alliances. But there's a lot of work that we can do to simplify that problem for DISA and for the rest of the joint force through unification of our joint networks and embracing the zero trust principles as we've been directed to by the department.
Any other takers on that?
I think, yeah, building on that, just finding the common systems too. As an example, software we use to build the air tasking orders, so to synchronize the fight in the air domain, C2 Core is the main system that we use, and I think that's prevalent now across the Air Force, but really getting that capability too in the allies and partner force. Australia is now moving forward to bringing that in as well, which is huge, and then of course looking to see if Japan might be interested in that game as well. But I think that is an example of trying to find the common systems, and then where it can all be hosted together, the Joint Force Network as an example, or Joe CE, all these things I think help us kind of get in the same ballpark of where we need to be to make sure we all have the same picture, we're fighting from the same picture.
Yeah, thank you.
Paul, I would just offer, when it comes to interoperability, that's actually a very broad topic, right? It means a lot of different things to different people, depending on what your function is or where you sit. Within the Army community, U.S. Army Pacific, our approach to this is campaigning, right? We've got Pacific Pathways campaigning effort, which is, functionally, it's a never-ending series of interactions with our allies and partners, training events. Some of those are named, some of them are as opportunities arise. But every interaction with our allies and partners gives us an opportunity to understand each other better. And we really need to be deliberate about trying to understand their position coming into a given challenge, for example. What we can't do, and I think what's been not totally successful in the past, is when we bring a US-centric solution to them and we surprise them with it, and then we shouldn't be surprised if they don't understand or trust it. Well, you built this, like you just brought this to me and now you want me to use it. Well, we wouldn't like that, right? So we need to be more participative with our allies and partners. And perhaps one way, and I'm going to go out a little on a limb here, but perhaps one way you could help us in industry is, do you have relationships with our allies and partners and their militaries? In some cases, yes. Typically, it's going to be the larger companies, but those can provide a basis of a common interoperability opportunity for us, whether it's the same equipment. One example is the wideband global SATCOM constellation. We have, Australia is a huge partner with that. We recently had Talisman Sabre, every other year exercise. The Australians are a huge partner in that. We both use that constellation. And so there's a lot of overlap there, and it's like a common language, well, a different kind of common language that we speak, But it's, you know, when our industry partners also have relationships with our allies and partners, that kind of accelerates the process for us to be interoperable at the technical and operational level. Well, that's constantly what we're seeking, is to improve and expand that. And so again, it happens at many levels. We talk joint, but then there's the coalition. And I'm not sure I've ever seen a coalition information sharing problem that was really technical at its core. We've got brilliant technicians. We've got almost unlimited technology. We usually run up against policy. And that's where typically the friction points are. I'm very optimistic that Lieutenant General Stanton, at the DISA director, is going to help us get after some solutions that help us overcome some of the barriers of the past. But yeah, there's a lot of opportunity there. And it's not just us. Industry can help us with that by having, you know, doing business with our allies and partners.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. So I'm going to turn to the big voice in the sky and ask if we have any questions from the audience.
Sir, we've got a bunch of them. We'll lead off.
Great.
We'll lead off with the first one. Across the Indo-Pacific fight, where connectivity will be intermittent and cloud control of reachback unavailable, what does industry need to understand about the operational realities of fighting disconnected?
I'll start. First of all, we need to recognize that's an assumption. And there's a lot of people working really hard to make sure you never are disconnected, right? Through a lot of means. So, and I understand we have to plan for that possibility, but we're working really hard to make sure folks are not. A lot of the conversation when it comes to DDIL tends to focus on where do you put the edge servers, and it's like how much and where do you put edge compute so that when you're cut off, you continue to operate. So we focus on hardware a lot of the time, and which vendor has the right hardware. But and that's partially true, but it's also applications, right? Like, so the applications we're running, regardless of where the hardware is, have to be smart enough to understand that, okay, just because I'm temporarily disconnected doesn't mean you know, the screen freezes up. Just a simple example of this. You're driving in your car, you got, you know, pick your whatever navigation software you use. You go through a long tunnel, it just assumes you're going to keep traveling on that road at a relatively consistent speed. So when you come out the other end, it picks it back up and there's really no disruption. Now that's a pretty well-framed problem set, but that's being done in the application, right? Whichever one it is, they all behave pretty similarly on that. So we didn't have to move hardware around to make that happen. It's on the device running that application. It dealt with that. It was a temporary DDIL, and it dealt with that, and you worked on it. So I don't hear a lot of conversation around application development and how the role there is in dealing with DDIL. So I would just offer that as a thought.
Yeah,
Yeah, so this is a critical aspect of what we expect the future fight to be, but Jared, go ahead.
To industry, what should you do? I would say keep doing what you're doing. I think you understand this problem. I think DISA, in partnership with the submarine fiber optic cable providers and the hyperscalers, is setting that environment where it is less likely that we will be in a completely denied, degraded environment. But this domain, like any other domain, is a domain that will be contested, and we will have episodic superiority in it, and other times we're going to have to fight through some friction. So continuing to push, it's a balancing act. How far is too far forward for our data centers, both our government ones, but also leveraging the commercial sector gives us a lot more flexibility, and then having enough resilient transport so we won't be in a disconnected environment. You balance those two things out, and you put money where it can go the best and buy us the most capability. It won't buy the risk down to zero, but it'll mitigate it. And then you couple with that with understanding, at least on the government and the military side, our information exchange requirements, our critical C2 applications in a thin line comms environment, and then we continue to communicate that with industry. So at the edge where we do think we might be down to thin line comms, we have low bandwidth solutions to do the basic things, C2, fires, sustainment. If we can do that out at the edge, I think we can quickly connect back in to the bigger pipes, getting us back into the larger apparatus, allowing us to move data around the battlefield. But look at a map for industry, look at the areas where we're going to be challenged. You already know where we're going to be. In a lot of those locations, we're already sitting on that ground right now. We have the connectivity in place. In conflict, those pipes will get bigger than they are now, but we're on the ground that we want to be in during conflict. So just keep making a more and more resilient environment for us.
Yeah, I concur with the general as well. I would challenge the assumption that we're going to be completely isolated in the Pacific with the capabilities the Joint Force and DISA is providing throughout the theater. That said, will we be challenged in certain areas? 100%, right? The areas that I would highlight is if we're reaching back to Colorado Springs, if we're reaching back to Fort Meade, if we're reaching back to San Antonio, if those places are affected as well, how is that going to impact the Pacific, right? The visibility and the synchronization that we're going to have in theater to make sure the machine is still running is significant, right? So the regional visibility and synchronization is still there for C2, fires, sustainment, predictive analytics, right? Back to the applications that we're going to need really to support INDOPACOM and the component commanders as they control the fight. How do we make sure that is secure where we're going to be challenged in multiple domains going into that fight? Space, cyber, subsea, right? So the resiliency that we know that we're going to have to build into the systems, we know the threats today, right? Industry needs to pay attention to those threats and know that the development for AI-enabled cloud, zero trust capabilities are needed in the theater, right? From Hawaii to Japan to Guam to Australia, right? As we're covering the Pacific. And there is a time horizon that we are looking at, right? So there are a number of days that we are looking at every day to make sure. So speed and delivery of the capability matters, right? So the requirements are out there and we need them faster. That would be my message.
I mentioned the mesh network, so to be able to get C2 out to the edge, really across the theater, and we are prototyping with industry with certain capabilities as we speak. We work very closely with our acquisition team to be able to look at this as well, but that's an area that we look towards industry to see how we can innovate quicker to make sure that we can have persistent communications with folks across the theater for whatever it is. We do factor in the, disruptions and those kinds of things. And when I mentioned people, pipes, processes, through our processes, we manage that with authorities. But at the same token, I think really making sure that we have that full network with redundant abilities there established is what we're looking for on the industry side.
Thank you all. Next question.
The next one's a two-parter. What type of AI-backed capabilities are you trying to integrate it into your agencies? And part two, what are your preferred business intelligence and data visualization tools? And are you open to homegrown capabilities or COTS technologies in the government cloud?
I can start it out. I mentioned the prototyping. We have, along with our acquisitions team who's onboarding some AI capabilities, we in PACAF have also invested in similar capabilities. We have a company that we're working with, Raft, who's developed a data layer for us, and we're testing that or exercising with that and making sure that we can get cloud capability and those kinds of things. And it's been working great. Very, very happy with that. So there's the top-down approach that acquisitions and our program offices do to modernize us, but we also have a grassroots level where we can inform kind of the bigger picture. They're looking at the global modernization, but we have unique needs as well. So I think that partnership has been going very well with the model that we're doing. And then in terms of a homegrown solution, we're actually looking at partnering with Air Mobility Command, who built a COP all on their own because they don't really fall within the AOC construct enterprise in the Air Force, which is strange, but that's the way it is. But they built their own COP. And so we're actually looking to bring that on. It's all, on Nipper base, but we're looking to bring it on and bolt on some other things and be able to access data from it. But it works great. But all that to say, we're looking at a lot of different solutions that are already out there to get the good enough thing, so that we can have capability now is what we're looking for.
Yeah, I'll take.
Efforts at the headquarters?
So for INDOPACOM, we're certainly looking for AI. I mentioned to speed up the decision cycle. Predictive analysis for logistics. We need it for fires, target identification, weapon to target pairing. It's similar things that we do in an infantry battalion with a forward air controller and a forward observer, but that's a small battle space, and you can keep track of that with a knee board and in your head with what's going on. This theater's too big. You can't do it with a single person. You can't do it on a PowerPoint slide. You need AI capabilities to help make those decisions faster for you. So it's going to hit every single warfighting function. I don't think we're narrowed down to a specific vendor. We have a lot of different AI vendors within the theater, and we're always open for more. There's a few that seem to be taking a lot of the work right now, but there's always opportunity for the rest of the industry to show their value. As the government, we set the stage for that flexibility within our COCOMs and our subordinate commands by having standard data tagging processes and procedures. That way we can use whatever AI tool we think fits our mission, as long as the back end, the data is there, it's accessible, it's tagged in a standard way, and it's not stovepiped across service networks. So we do that. I think we buy ourselves a lot of flexibility for the commanders to use their prerogative on what tools benefit them, and it gives us a lot of flexibility to pivot to certain industry partners when we want to leverage one capability over the next. So having that foundation in place, all the data that feeds into the AI, that's the homework that we need to do right now. We've kind of changed on which tools we like over the last few years as more and more capabilities become mature. But setting that foundation, I think, is key for us.
Yeah, Jared's spot on. INDOPACOM's an AI-enabled headquarters, right? This is AI-enabled theater. There are multiple opportunities for AI, large language models, to be integrated at multiple echelons. So it's not just the combat command, it's the component down to the lower echelons. And so different AI tools and capabilities work best for different things. And so let's take the best of breed for that right echelon. So if that's recording meetings for the combatant commander that then drop into an AI agent and then allows the staff to say, what was Admiral Paparo's guidance today? Got it. It helps us go faster as a staff, as a theater. From a DISA perspective, how are we doing AI-enabled defensive cyber operations for multiple enclaves for a CSSP? That's important. How am I getting visibility for multiple fiber cuts that takes the data set that goes back through the last 3 years to say, oh, this spot over country X at this time of the year for some reason has a fiber cut at this exact time. So we can be a little more predictive for maneuver in the theater for the DISN and our defensive efforts. And so helping us go faster and integrating that is something we're looking for from a defensive side and a network operations side and just a provisioning side.
I would say AI, to me, it brings back memories of when Lean Six Sigma was a cool thing, and we tried to smear it all over everything. And it wasn't always appropriate for everything we tried to apply it to. AI is similar in that it's not a one-size-fits-all. You can do anything from helping you write better papers to making really complex decisions with a lot of data-based factors really quickly. Across the department, there's a focus on improving and expanding our understanding of what AI is and how it's different than machine learning. I recently attended a course at the Naval Postgraduate School on this, and it was very eye-opening. So I think there's almost unlimited applications for it, but you need to know what you're doing before you start. And I would say the problem sets that are the most attractive for this are going to be those where it's a very complex decision, where you need to bring in a lot of different data and make quick decisions, right? And so in this area, the question or the answer you get very much depends upon the specific question you ask. So you got to get really good at asking the right question, because if your question's bad, the answer is going to be bad. And I agree with Jared that even if you're asking the perfect question and your data set's not right, you're still going to get a bad answer because you don't have the right data. So to some degree within the Army, to kind of specifically answer parts of this question, Vantage is a current tool that we're using. It's not so much AI, it's more of a data set that pulls together data from a lot of different other sources, but it's a critical step needed to then overlay some AI or machine learning tool on top of that, right? So this is a rapidly expanding area. I would just say we need to be very careful and deliberate, and with a high degree of self-awareness on what we try to apply this to. Otherwise, you've got the potential to waste a lot of time, money, and effort and not get a good outcome on it.
Yeah, sound advice. Big voice in the sky. Next question, please.
Within within INDOPACOM, who owns the left of launch mission for missile defense in China and South China Sea? And how do you collectively set the theater to ensure the network transport delivery and C2 architecture is optimized to meet the mission requirements for defense of the homeland?
In terms of missile defense, that is PACAF. So I mentioned that our AOC and our 94th Area Air Defense Command as well. It's an Army organization that actually falls and
That's the
aligns,
Army Air and Missile.
under PACAF. So yeah, that's right.
There you go.
But so that's a responsibility for Pacific Air Force's General Schneider, and then our Air Operations Command helps support that. So the Theater Area Air Defense Command Authority. So we're a bit of an extension with that, partnering with the 94th Area Air Defense Command as well. That's the first part of the question. But
What I would add to that is the way you make sure that the network is set is you practice a lot, and you do a lot of testing and validation, and we're probably not going to talk a lot about the details of that here, but it's a large ecosystem that contributes to that. All the organizations he mentioned, and there's a broad ecosystem of sensors, effectors, decision makers. So that's not my swim lane, so I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I'll take the second part of the question.
Yeah.
You answered the first one. Thank you. We have the most complex circuits, nodes, and networks anywhere else in the world in the Indo-Pacific, right? Jared alluded to it earlier of we would not have designed it this way, right? So some of the capabilities and items that we listed before is buying down the risk for some of those efforts. It's transport, it's cloud, it's collapsing of networks so we can be more efficient in a zero trust environment. But that's how we're setting the theater, right? We're setting the theater for transport, being able to deliver to the right joint task force at the right time for C2 fire sustainment when they need it anywhere in the Pacific. So looking at where we know those forces are going to be and buying down the risk, enhancing capability in those areas is how we're enhancing the theater level enterprise network, and I think that carries down the echelons to the tactical units.
So for missile defense, DISA works very closely with the Missile Defense Agency, building that architecture. And as we look to setting the theater, things that we need to be leveraging within the department much more aggressively are MPLS technology, moving away from static TDM routes. The more our network stays static, the more it gets diagrammed, looked at, and attacked. The more we can maneuver it around, change it regularly, the more of a challenge we make for our adversaries as they try to attack our network. So there is technology that's out there, it's mature, it's ready for us to go to. We need to hurry up and pivot to it. It'll be cheaper, easier to defend from a cybersecurity perspective, easier to resupply, and it'll meet our operational requirements. So leveraging what the industry has for us and moving off of antiquated, nailed up circuits that don't allow us flexibility across the theater is the pathway ahead for setting it to ensure data moves around the battlefield, even in a contested environment.
Next question.
Sir, we have time for one final question before we turn it back to you. And that question is, what question should we have asked the panel that we haven't so far?
I'll take one. A lot has been made over the years about CJAD C2. For the first 3 or 4 years, I felt I was less intelligent the more I learned about it because I kept hearing so many different things. The question as it relates to industry and what CJAD C2 is what do you want Department of War? What do you want US military? So CJAD C2 doesn't need to be an expensive program. It's simply rules of the road for how we're going to exchange data, how we're going to communicate. That gives us flexibility for a lot of different types of devices, a lot of AI tools. It simply sets the standard for how information will be moved. Then it allows services to address their unique missions where they have one, but we have commonality at a core level for how we're going to function. And what that does for industry is it gives you something predictable to shoot at. You don't have to worry about us doing a 180 and going in a different direction. You can build to that standard. And to General Ferris's point earlier, it gives our allies and partners something predictable to plan to, knowing that if they invest their limited funding, this is a route that we're going to continue to go down. It's not wasted money when we change to something else. So clear CJAD C2 standards, telling you what those standards are, making them aware to industry, and that's what you build towards.
Mine would be, it's connected to that statement as well, and it actually is one of the questions we had in our prep, which I really liked, and that's the biggest risk over the next 5 to 10 years. And I think it really is trying to stick with and adhere to a stable goal as we modernize together. I think if we continue making a lot of these changes in a way that leaves off a component or an allied partner, those kinds of things. If we're modernizing in our own stovepipes, we're just going to be right where we are right now. We're really not going to move forward substantially. So I think trying to figure out what that vision is and sticking with it and bringing everybody along together with in a purposeful way, in a deliberate way, I think is what's really needed going forward.
Yeah, I think I'd go with an industry question, right? I'd sort of flip it. Basically, where do we see the relationship with industry going in, the next 5 to 10 years as we go into, some pretty important times in 26 and 27. And I think the relationship's going to have to be closer, both at the strategic and operational level. So how we are implementing, how we're designing and engineering, and how we're defending, right? We need your help, right? And so bringing you into the fold, no kidding, into the operation centers, and making sure we're leveraging your engineering expertise, your capabilities to make sure that we're collectively getting right. I see that relationship going closer together, right? And for us, those partnerships, we have to build now, right? It's not an exercise. It's not, an engineering meeting. Those are habitual relationships that we have to build day to day. So then crisis contingency comes up. Hey, I know Ron and I know Sam, those engineers that know that specific technology, they're showing up, so we have that relationship. So we can be a little more dynamic, both on the military and industry side.
So I would say the question that some of you might want to ask, which by your presence here, you're already kind of answering, is how do you stay in tune with what we need, right? And just being here is part of that. You're showing up, you're having these conversations, and you need to educate yourselves on how we're organized and who does what. Like, a lot of people come at me just because of the rank I wear. They think I have a huge budget, but I actually have a pretty narrowly scoped mission. I can advise others and give input and advice and recommendations, but I'm not an acquisition. I'm not currently in an acquisition billet, so I'm not doing a lot of purchasing. So if you have a good understanding of how, within the military, how we're organized and who does what, and understanding of those functions, that can be very helpful. One way that you can obtain that quickly is hire a veteran. You can hire someone who understands all that, and many of you do. That's why we enjoy coming to these, because it's like a big reunion. But you can hire that experience and that understanding, and then you just naturally obtain that, and that'll help you find your niche. And because the more precise you can be on who you approach with the products or services that you offer, you shorten that time to find a match and start doing business together. So we're very large. We're very, sometimes more disjointed than we'd like to be. But yeah, understanding each other better on both sides, I think, is a key to being successful, being efficient, so we're not wasting time and money and energy. So again, and I tried to get ahead of that in my opening comments, but again, I just want to thank you for being here, because this interaction is very valuable for us to understand. Sometimes we just assume that industry knows what we need, but we have to verbalize that and be able to describe it. And hopefully some of the things we've discussed will lead to follow-on conversations so we can improve our understanding of each other. Thank you.
So thank you very much. I wanted to say a couple things in closing. So I want to thank you for participating in the discussion, but I also really want to thank you for what you're doing. We talked about some of the challenges in this theater. We talked about the capabilities and where we are going for the future fight, and you are leading us through the complex challenges that we have out here to enable the capabilities needed for that next fight, and we appreciate it. So thank you very much for your time today, and thank you very much for what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Thanks for being here with us, Paul. All right, thanks.
All right, General Fredenberg and panelists, on behalf of AFCEA International and AFCEA Hawaii, we want to thank you for taking time to be with us today. A couple of things that came to mind that were visuals for me. Certainly the sports car analogy and the wide open highway. We need that for that transport. The PLEO, SD-WAN, mesh network, and AI. The 6-year-old soccer game, because I had a son that played soccer, so that was definitely a visual for me. Patchwork quilt. If you ask a bad question, you're going to get a bad answer. So put that down. And then, lastly, not just tongue in cheek, but do hire a vet. And that I say when you hire a vet, if you think about football, you get somebody who's a special team player. that is going to make a difference in winning the game. So thanks for saying hire a vet. That's important. And as a thank you to our speakers this week, on behalf of AFCEA, we're going to make a donation to the Friends of Windward Wounded Warriors. In addition, after I get done with these remarks, I'll present each one of these esteemed panelists a highly coveted coin, which highlights the 40th year of TechNet Indo-Pacific. So again, thank you for joining us here for this part of day 2. There's a lot of programming still left to happen. Make sure you check out the mobile app for the latest information. Coming up at 1 o'clock in this room will be a keynote from Lieutenant General Laura Lindemann, the Deputy Commander of Pacific Air Forces and the Deputy Theater Air Component Commander to the Commander of Indo-Pacific. And then also after that at 2 p.m. there'll be a session in the INDOPACOM Theater with a consortium of some CEOs that are going to be talking about 5G and integrated sensing and command. The Ericsson CEO for Federal Services, as well as the CEO for Nokia Federal Services, is going to be there. And we'll have a senior person from a UAV type company, and then also retired two-star Pete Gallagher will be there and offer his perspectives on those things. So I just ask that you enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you for your participation, and well done, panelists.
Thank you. Thanks. Cool.
All right, thanks. That wasn't
Thanks, sir.
Yeah,
Appreciate
it. Appreciate
Oh,
your comments.
thanks so much.
Hey, what have you flown?
I'm a hurt guy by trade.
Oh, okay, cool.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Good one. Thanks.
Terry?
Well done.
Thanks, sir.
I need a sports car.
I need
It
a
was,
sports car, too.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
No, thank you.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, much appreciated.
Appreciate it. No, thank you.
All right.
Time flew right by.
That is the high. I just want you to know it's the highly coveted.
Yeah, no, it's good.
TechNet
It's got
Indo-Pacific
40 on
Challenge
it?
card.
You won't see mine on anything. I'm gonna put that thing on the wall.
I got my card on my
You might see one. I got 2 now, so you might see one of those on it. I could make a lot of money off it.
Make sure we don't.
I might be able to retire with it.
If not, just send me an email.
But we're probably very closely tied. Actually, not. Very closely tied with you guys on JFN. So. Yep.
Yeah, turn it off.